Emma's Fury, Chapter 1. The thin material of Emma's hooded sweat jacket does little against the biting chill in the air as the harsh New England winter drives many scurrying indoors. The plaguing cold leashes one's heat, biting at the skin and freezing the eyes. The endless night engulfs all sounds in the deafening roar of silence. Shoving her hands deeper into her pockets, Emma shivers. She quickens her pace as she crosses the deserted streets. A remote siren screams in the distance as a long train of brake lights travel up Interstate 93, the thin layer of frost coating the potholed roads of Boston. Dim street lights cascade barely enough light to illuminate the cracked fissures along the sidewalks. As the sirens dissipate, the immediate area is plunged back into stillness except for the echo of her and David's footfalls. His thick gray overcoat covers his hulking frame. Bundled tightly, David's appearance doesn't draw any unwanted attention, though at nearly 6 feet in height, he dwarfs Emma. His form is an efficient balance between agility and strength, with a well-developed physique of toned muscle. His shoulder-length, chocolate-colored hair whips about, assailed by another powerful gust of frigid wind. The faded blue jeans and dirty work boots complete the look of utter normalcy. Outwardly, there would be nothing about him that stands out as unusual, yet his eyes hold a lethality found only in the most hardened predators. Eyes, the color of a rich chestnut, have borne witness to acts of great brutality. A thin scar bisects his eyebrow, but is not a deterrent to his masculinity. Crossing over a wide footbridge, they turn toward the factory mills. Here, a thick layer of black ice sheens the path, yet neither of them slows their pace as they make their way to the far side. The red brick is a sickly shade of gray under the straining pale lights. The particular building they head toward is barren and shrouded in darkness. Thick overgrowths of bushes and weeds have hemorrhaged through fissures in the asphalt. Inside, the large expansive area is desolate, holding nothing but a few toppled pieces of furniture and dust. A structure that, at some point, thrived, but now has fallen into neglect. Traveling down a constricted alleyway, they stop in front of a narrow, boarded-up entry. A graffiti-laden loading door stands rusted shut several yards away. Emma's hand steadies as she gently raps on the entrance. A small rectangular slot slides open, revealing the stern face of an immense man, his eyes and nose taking up the entire opening. "What the fuck you want?" he croaks. Emma's head cocks slightly to the left as she paints on her friendliest smile. "We are looking for an audience with the fine owner of this establishment," Emma announces. He scoffs at them in derision as his waxy eyes shift back and forth between them. "This here ain't no establishment. I'm the owner, so unless you're giving me money, fuck off." As he closes the slide, Emma grasps the frame of the small opening and watches him stoically. She pushes her will against his, trying to bend his mind into a more malleable state. Emma hates this method. It is like trying to bounce a marshmallow off of an ant. You either succeed or crush it. If the object is strong enough, he or she will smash your efforts aside and try to kill you. Emma often got the latter option, but from what she can see of the man, his spirit appears weak, so her chances should be better for success. As if releasing a levy, Emma can sense her will sweeping through his mind. She inserts calming thoughts, influencing him to grant them access. After some tense moments of silence, the iron deadbolt of the door slides and the entryway opens. Quietly, Emma and David enter, passing the dazed man. The mountain of a guard leans listlessly against the wall. They walk through a small reception area and down a dimly lit hallway. A camouflaging illusion of glamour hides the true inner workings of the old factory. Many in the supernatural world will use this kind of deception spell to remain hidden. By bending or redirecting light, they can make an object or building appear as something else, or even cause it to appear or disappear. Ahead, Emma can hear talking, general chatter and the occasional moan and grunt. The hallway opens to the large factory floor. Red satin curtains hang over each window, and an extended bar spans the length of the room to the right. Several torches dot the walls around the room, providing a dim atmosphere. In the center is a raised dais, blanketed with pillows and several plush sofas. Encircling the dais are several sitting rooms, and curtain walls separate one from the next. Each area contains a sofa or a chaise and a multitude of pillows. It is reminiscent of the opium dens on the West Coast over 100 years ago. Yet, here they weren't pandering narcotics. A few of the partitioned areas were open to reveal several individuals, the twisted forms writhing around each other. Even under the dim lighting, their bodies glow with a sheen of sweat and blood. A cold shudder races through Emma at the display. The feasting predators appear oblivious to her presence as they slake their hunger. A human, buried in a mass of form, stares blankly. The young girl's features are hard and aged, and the unnatural hue of her dyed black hair reflects the red glow of the torchlight. It seems inconceivable to Emma why one would eagerly volunteer to be fed upon. Emma doubts that every human here has volunteered, but as long as there is no additional dead at the end of the night, there's very little she can do. Most nights, these little soirees end in either an all-out orgy or a bloodbath brawl. Quickly searching the young woman's mind, she senses that she has agreed to the bloodletting. Shaking herself from the image, Emma turns away. Toward the back of the building, Emma notes another dais. Sitting on an overstuffed sofa is Nikos D'Angelo, the owner. Silently, she motions to David and follows him as he makes his way to the back. A few of the vampires try to approach Emma, only to be halted by David. The lethality in which he carries himself sends a persuasive message to stand down. As they pass the center dais, a massive bodyguard blocks David and Emma's path. Though the man was about the same height as David, he weighs about twice as much. The abundant muscles of his chest and arms strain under the material of his satin dress shirt. His thick cascade of golden hair flows to his mid-back and frames a very square face and jaw. He's a walking, talking nightmare of muscle and violence. Holding up his hand, his low voice is gruff and thick. Mr. D'Angelo does not wish to be disturbed this evening. We ask that you seek his counsel at a later date. Emma notes the man's tone is a harsh contrast to his overbearing appearance. His ancient appearance belies a level of underlying intelligence. Counsel? Emma mutters to herself as she steps up beside David. Both men stare each other down as their hostility crackles in the air. Folding his arms over his enormous chest, the guard watches them fiercely. I think it would be in the best interest of all parties involved if Mr. Nikos D'Angelo sees us now, Emma states firmly. Emma knows at this point they have the full attention of Mr. D'Angelo and his guests. Every person seated at the small platform watches the scene intensely. Calmly, Emma touches David's shoulder as she continues, I'm sure that no one wants any trouble, but it is of the utmost importance that we speak with him. My friend here, Emma nods her head toward David and then leans closer to the giant. He's not a patient man. You'd be wise to step aside. The titan of a man scoffs and is instantly swinging a hook toward David, who smoothly steps back, blocking the hit with his forearm. Clutching the guard's wrist, David strikes the man's elbow with enough force to shatter the bones. Screaming wordlessly in pain, the guard drops his arm uselessly to his side before stepping forward, swinging with the other arm. Ducking low, David dodges the blow and strikes quickly upward, breaking the guard's nose. The wounded sentinel slumps to the ground as others move in cautiously to help him. David squares his shoulders and breathes deeply, annoyance flashing across his face as he motions for Emma to proceed. Emma can feel her lips switching in mild amusement. Curtailing her smile, Emma walks unhurriedly over to the large sofa and Mr. D'Angelo. Resting casually, D'Angelo watches their approach apathetically. Sharply dressed, a designer suit in a shade closest to charcoal, his maroon necktie setting off his already naturally dark colors. His midnight black hair pulled back tightly to the nape of his neck, while steel-gray eyes follow every movement throughout the room. In some respects, an attractive man, except for the underlying coldness of his gaze. His smile showcases an impressive set of fangs, but the grin does not touch his eyes. Two busty consorts flank his sides, each one wearing a different shade of sheer material which barely covers their bodies. The women are complete opposites in appearance. One woman has long, flowing, flame-red hair and skin that is an unnatural hue of white. The second woman's short-cropped hair is dark as pitch. Her skin is darker too and is a lustrous olive tone. Each vampire glares at Emma with obvious loathing. A few of the security have mustered their courage and inch cautiously toward them. Never shifting his gaze from Emma, D'Angelo raises a hand and the men recede. Emma, it is most wondrous to see you this evening, and might I say you are looking as lovely as always? Ah, but I would be remiss if I did not introduce my new wives. Clasping the red-headed vampire's hand, he turns to each woman. This is Michelle, and this is Tisa. He brushes a kiss on each woman's hand. Both women sneer in their direction, and the insidious gesture mars their lovely features. His voice is smooth, enveloping her. Chuckling as he runs his tongue over his sharp fangs, he continues, Can I offer you and your friend a drink? He gestures with a graceful long-fingered hand toward a small cushioned stool in front of him. Emma remains standing as David shadows closely behind her. No, thank you. Emma knows that simple courtesies from a vampire always come at a price. In their world, to accept a beverage could mean being indebted to them for an act of kindness, and vampires have extremely long memories. But refusing such courtesies could be viewed as an insult as well. Dealing with their kind can be a dangerous game. Shifting in his seat, D'Angelo sighs as the short-haired vampire, Tisa, nuzzles against his neck. As much as I always enjoy our visits, you can see that I am hosting tonight, so maybe we can continue this at a later time. His gaze slowly sweeps over her. Or, if you prefer, we can retire to my quarters to discuss this in a more private setting. A low growl rolls from Tisa's throat. Emma squares her shoulders, never taking her gaze from the vampire lord. Nikos, you know why I am here. I am to collect Anthony Rosario. With an almost imperceptible movement, D'Angelo tenses. My dear Emma, as you are most aware, my clan and I have always endeavored to aid you in the Fury whenever possible. I am certain that for whatever reason you are seeking poor Anthony, it is merely a misunderstanding. When I manage to locate him, I will certainly advise that he seek you out directly. Now, if you please. He motions to several guards. Tisa laughs deeply, slinking her hand between D'Angelo's legs, cupping him. Emma stands unyielding as she pulls at the surrounding energy. The temperature of the massive area drops rapidly, and the wine glass in front of Nikos frosts over. D'Angelo, I believe you fail to see the severity of the situation. Emma clasps her hands in front of her. Perhaps if you spent more time leading those under your care and less time cuddling dim-witted, gap-toothed whores, then we would not have this problem. Emma's hope that this job would go smoothly is quickly disintegrating. Avoiding a confrontation seems very unlikely now. Calming her breath, Emma struggles to maintain a normal outward composure. Tisa turns, glaring at Emma, her eyes shifting to a blood red. Angrily, she hisses as she tries to rise, only to be pulled down again by D'Angelo. Emma doesn't try hiding the arrogant smile curling her lips. Tisa's pale skin turns a particularly intense shade of red. I will rip your throat out, bitch, Tisa seethes, her voice harsh and rasping. She struggles to stand as D'Angelo easily restrains her, smoothing her hair, telling her to calm down and remain silent. She will not talk about me like that, Tisa huffs impetuously. It is clear to Emma that Tisa is hot-headed and overly emotional, and she is Nico's biggest weakness. Emma stands statuesquely. D'Angelo, Emma's voice is firm. You will bring me Rosario, now. Or, if you prefer, I'll just take your fat whore over there in his stead. Emma jerks her head toward Tisa. With a shriek, Tisa launches herself from the sofa at Emma. D'Angelo moves quickly to grab her, clutching at the thin fabric of her outfit. Tisa halts several inches from Emma, but it is close enough. Reaching out, Emma grabs Tisa by the wrist. In an instant, Tisa's eyes widen as the realization of her predicament settles in. Emma opens the pathways within her, permitting a mere trickle of energy into the other woman. As the stores of energy build, it quickly transforms into a scalding pain, which brings Tisa to her knees. A frantic scream rips from the woman. Searching the creature's mind, Emma can see into the darkest crevices of her being. Widening that expanse, all of her deepest fears and darkest deeds are revealed. Searing sweat dapples Tisa's brow. Emma pulls on the memory of an abusive father, hard fists and blinding pain, broken glass and terror. It's the terror that Emma concentrates on, intensifying it and pulling it to the forefront of Tisa's mind. Emma senses several of the men moving closer. One more step, and I will break her, Emma warns through clenched teeth. The vampires stop their advance. All eyes are on Nikos. He sits uneasily as he feigns indifference, struggling for the stoicism that eludes him. Emma can see the minutest hint of fear and rage lurking behind his steely gray eyes. She can tell that he is extremely close, so close, to the edge of his breaking point. Spilling more force into Tisa, Emma wrenches a howling ball from her. Stop! Enough! D'Angelo shouts as he vaults to his feet. Rosario! Now! Emma strains to control her voice. The familiar rage is boiling just below the surface. If she can't control it, it will overcome her. He is my charge. I am honor-bound to protect all who are under my care. D'Angelo whispers softly, indecision streaming across his features. Emma steps forward, though not releasing her grip on Tisa. You know I am here. You know what your charge has done, Emma spits. He has taken more than his allotment, and he must answer for that. His transgressions are yours. You are his master, and you must atone for your failings to guide him. You will bring him to me now. If you refuse, not only will I cull your herd here, but I will destroy every vampire within 100 miles. Should I start with this one? Emma fiercely shakes Tisa, pulling her off her knees as the vampire whimpers. Nico's eyes flash to Tisa before quickly coming back to Emma. D'Angelo stares silently, yet his expression wanes with hesitation. His eyes drop. Lowering her head, Emma meets his gaze. In all the years I have lived, do you want to know what I have learned about vampires? Emma pauses briefly, burrowing her gaze into D'Angelo. His eyes flicker and glaze with moisture. Many believe that they know the means to destroy a vampire: holy water, sunlight, or a stake. These all will certainly kill you, but in order to utterly destroy a blood-sucking leech, you give them life. Emma focuses on the energy, pinpointing the silent heart of Tisa. She can sense the muscles shudder and spring to life. Tisa's eyes widen with a growing panic. In the overwhelming silence of the warehouse, Emma knows they will all be able to hear the woman's hammering heart. You stand there atop your mighty pedestal, thinking you've won against the siege of death, but every vampire in existence strives to grasp that which is missing. You incessantly crave the blood of the living in order to feel love and lust, a beating heart in your cold, black, empty chest. All is an endeavor to feel human again. So, how do you kill a vampire? You give just the tiniest amount of that life, and then take it away. D'Angelo wavers as a silent tear trickles down his cheek. Emma tightens her grip on Tisa's arm. Inhaling deeply, she composes her ragged nerves. The emotional cost of these missions is taking its toll. For the first time tonight, Emma wonders if she'll break before he does. The struggle to keep her feelings of remorse or empathy at bay weighs heavily on her. While they are not human, she often fights with herself to believe that they are truly monsters. If they are so horrible, why did Emma feel as if she were the villain? The Fury maintains order through terror and violence. This is not her way, but her way is not who she is now. Before allowing the weakness to spread, she mentally steels herself, pushing it away. With a subtle nod from D'Angelo, 2 guards leave. After a few moments of silence, the 2 men return. Between them, they drag Anthony Rosario, his long arms straining weakly against his captors as he voicelessly mutters to himself. Emma studies the young man being hauled to stand in front of her. He is sickly thin, denoting an emaciated appearance of one who hasn't fed for some time. Dirt and soot cake his light auburn hair. His features are handsome for his age. Emma's guess is that he was barely 22 at the time of his transition. His eyes dart fretfully around the room, appealing for aid. No one returns his gaze. Emma releases her hold of Tisa, and the woman scrambles across the floor. Nikos pulls her protectively into his arms. Softly he whispers, cooing in her ear, trying to soothe her. Tisa's eyes are stark wide, and her pallor is ashen. She looks haunted now, but after a day and a feeding, she should be back to normal, Emma reminds herself, though hopefully she'll be wiser than before. Turning her attention back to Anthony, Emma closes the distance between them. Standing mere inches from him, she can see the tremors rake his form as his gaze remains firmly toward the ground. The smell of fear and blood oozes from him, permeating the area directly near him. Emma tilts her head, continuing to study the boy. Anthony, do you know who I am? Keeping his eyes averted, Anthony scarcely nods his head. Do you know why I am here? Anthony rigidly tenses, but his submissive demeanor remains constant. Emma silently curses him, mentally beseeching him to fight for his life. His fate was absolute, but it would be easier if she could kill him while defending herself. Unfortunately, the pathetic creature is broken, and there can be no pity for him, no reprieve. His sins are too great to warrant a second chance. Were you not made aware of the limits? Emma strains to strip the emotion from her voice, keeping it level. Anthony bows his head, remaining silent. Moving quickly, Emma reaches out, clasping his jaw, forcing his head up to meet her gaze. Answer me. His eyes are pleading and scared. There can be no pity for him, Emma repeats to herself. She watches his dry throat working roughly as he tries to clear his throat. Yes, ma'am, he sheepishly rasps. How many are you allowed to take? Emma's voice carries across the room. Mother Mei Li wanted an example made of him. Everyone would need to hear this. 4... But I... Anthony squawked, trying to pull away, but Emma's grip tightens. Shush now. How many did you take? Emma asks. Panic flashes across Anthony's face. He stares directly at D'Angelo, who only looks on statuesquely. Master, please, I beg you. D'Angelo simply ignores Anthony's pleas, his gaze directed toward the front wall. His gaze implores Emma. I was weak. I promise it'll never happen again. Please, I swear. His voice hitches up in desperation as he sobs breathlessly, beseeching for his life. Emma shifts her hold on the young vampire, clutching his throat. Lowering her voice to a more soothing tone, she leans closer, whispering in his ear. How many did you take? 6. Anthony sags at the confession. His shoulders slump as the understanding rolls through him. Maintaining contact with him, Emma circles around Anthony, stopping at his back. Her hand slides over his heart in between his shoulder blades. Emma inhales deeply and pushes the force of her energy into him. Like a rupturing levee, images cascade before her. His victims are old and young alike. Emma can see several children and an elderly woman. They are frightened and crying, all of them dead. Emma can see his callous indifference. He is so drunk on pure bloodlust that all thought and reason fades away. His power base and will are weak. He will always be a slave to his primal, predatory urges, his impulse control non-existent. Not only does he revel in the kill itself, but by inciting fear. Peering deeper still, Emma locates his heart, enveloping it with her energy. Sharply, Emma applies a surge of force to the lifeless muscle, causing it to burst. Anthony inhales sharply and collapses to the floor, his corpse powdering instantly. Emma's heart races as she breathes deeply, trying to keep the overwhelming frenzy at bay. As she regains her control, she returns to Nikos again, tremors rushing through her as she breathes deeply. We thank you kindly for your cooperation. We hope that you all will take this unfortunate lesson to heart in the future. Emma turns, walking toward the exit. Abruptly she stops, and not turning around, calls out to D'Angelo. In 2 days, mediators will arrive to discuss the disciplinary sanctions for your clan. Not waiting for a response, Emma leaves the warehouse, shadowed by David, yet again.